Welcome to Three Food Memories. I'm Savas Savas. Our guest on this episode of Three Food Memories is a chef who cooks like a philosopher and thinks like a farmer. To him, food is medicine. He serves with joy, not doctrine. He's a pioneer who looks backward to the land, to the growers, the seasons for direction. In a world of culinary spectacle, he offers substance, fire, flavour, and the quiet conviction that generosity is the most important ingredient of all. Recorded here at Kitchen by Mike Sydney, Mike McEnearney. Welcome to Three Food Memories by Sava.
Sava, thank you. Nice to be here. Gosh, you make me sound good.
I think I just confessed to the world my Mike Man crush.
I'm honoured. Very flattered. Thank you.
Congratulations on your latest collaboration from here by Mike in Melbourne. It has your fingerprints all over it, your life's work, a living expression of the philosophy that I spoke about. I ate there a few weeks back with my boys, and one of them said, unprompted, "Papa, this food is made with love."
Oh, love it. Honestly, that's all that needs to be said. Are we finished? Cut.
Talk through the intention of From Here by Mike.
You know, it was a really interesting meeting the very first time with One Hotels because I'd never heard of One Hotels and I'd never ever planned of being in collaboration with a hotel in partnership. And I looked at what they were doing, and their core values are very much aligned to mine. They're all about sustainability, no waste, small footprint, um, nature driven, and that's a really big part of who I am and what I do. So that to me was a really interesting meeting. And then the brief was, let's do a restaurant, let's take care of the food and beverage. What would you do? And I just thought, well, for me, it's about designing a restaurant that is firstly hyper local. Let's embrace Victoria. Let's embrace small producers. You know, that's something that I've done for a long time now. Really focus on quality, a less is more approach. Focus on our footprint, and give people a real taste of what it means to honour the produce equally as the craft.
You've put a lot of work in the actual written menu.
Oh, sure.
So explain that process.
I think what we always wanted to do is as I said, we wanted to honour the producers. So if you look at the first page of the menu, there's a map. There's a map of Victoria, and it has the GPS coordinates and the positioning of all of those producers on that map. It tells you who they are and where they are. So we wanted to talk about them first and foremost, and then the menu is there to share, because I believe food is to be gathered around a table, discussed, shared, and enjoyed first and foremost, not to be put on a pedestal. It's there to be enjoyed and to be, something to bring people together. So the food is there to share. So it's broken up between snacks, small things, large things, some sides, and some afters. And we want you to sort of graze through that entire sort of menu, in which the menu is built to change regularly, because a lot of the suppliers that we use and the producers that we use, they don't make a great deal, and their seasons are small. And that's the beauty of cooking that I love. It's that real discipline of cooking with the seasons and changing the menu when you need to change it, not because it's spring, not because it's winter or summer, because Father Joe's ran out of Tamarillos. You're going to have to use something else now. What are you going to do? What else can I find? Well, it's about to be strawberries. Let's get some beautiful strawberries and we'll change our tack. And that's what we do. And that's the exciting thing about that menu. It's very un-hotel, because a hotel would always have a select few distributors to buy your produce off. Don't want to print things like you only print once or twice a year your menu. Everything is the same, but our partnership is different. Our partnership is, let's shake that up. Let's make a restaurant in a hotel and not make a hotel restaurant. And that's the real differentiator.
You've been the creative director of the Carriage Farmers Market for 10 years now.
Yeah.
What have you taken from that practice to From Here by Mike?
That's shown me that you may have a relationship with a producer, but that relationship with the producer is for when they have their product. So Carriage Farmers Market is on every Saturday. We're focusing only on New South Wales producers, so we don't have any Victorian or Queensland or Northern Territory producers. We focus only on New South Wales produce, and you as the farmer and producer need to be there to sell your wares. You can't be a distributor. So you have this very authentic farmers market feeling in a very urban landscape. So when you have these fleeting relationships with farmers, it may be for 4 weeks, and then I'll see them next year. So you'd start treating food and producers like birthdays.
Are you checking in with them during the year to see
Always.
how they're
Always,
managing with Mother
always,
Nature?
always. It might be, Mike, I'm going to be probably maybe a month earlier, a month later, and I might need to stay an extra month this year because we've had a really good run. And we try and shuffle the market around. It's like Tetris. And we just work it like that because the relationships that we have with the farmers are incredible. And that's really the most important thing.
Stephanie Alexandra and Maggie Beer would speak of times in their career where farmers would come to them with these things that they had grown, and then they would introduce them into the menu. Are you seeing that sort of activity?
A lot. We form, that's the fun. It's forming these relationships with farmers that love what they do. They're only producing one particular thing, and you want to take that thing and you want to use it in your menu, but it's in its own particular way. You don't try and force it. You let the produce tell you what to do, and that's how you play. That's my favorite part.
So before we hop into your food memories, everything about you is so Sydney. If you were any more Sydney, you'd be a swan. Who is this by Mike bloke?
Elaborate on that. Who is this by Mike bloke? What does that mean?
Who is Mike?
Mike. Mike's a happy-go-lucky, glass half full kind of guy. Forever optimistic, eyes open, loves to listen, and loves to take care and look after people, and loves a good hug. That's Mike.
And so how does Mike communicate that through his food?
Um, I think its simplicity really shows that because I'm able to honor all parts of the food. If we're having, for instance, a dish that I love to make is the goat's cheese souffle. Now it's made up of 5 different ingredients. It's really simple, but it really focuses on that goat's cheese that we get from Meredith Dairy. So for me, that is respecting the product. The simplicity and the warmth of the dish gives that real hug to the person eating it. And it's a funny thing, and I only realized this probably 2 years ago. I like to assess myself every now and then. I ask myself, why are you doing this, Mike? And it clicked. And it actually is not because I enjoy cutting onions. What really came to me was I actually like the word hospitality. I like to be hospitable. I like to look after people. I really enjoy serving people on the pass, asking them how their day is, giving them some food that makes them feel good. I feel good. I love that. I love hospitality. I love looking after people. And in that, I look after myself first and foremost. But that's who Mike is. Mike's the guy that likes to give everyone a hug through something delicious to eat.
Your first food memory, the year is 1988. It's the year of Australia's bicentenary.
Yeah.
We're talking Darling Harbour, Chinese Gardens,
Yeah.
the monorail,
Oh my God.
and a 16, 17-year-old high school Mike discovers the big city of Sydney.
Do you know that was an amazing time because I had literally just started leaving year 10, moving into year 11, and I'd been into a lot of really interesting independent music for quite some time. I've never been short, so I've kind of bluffed my way into pubs to see bands and stuff, but I was starting to see more and more of Sydney bands at that time, and I was going to pubs like the Evening Star. Back then it was called the Evil Star, the Hopeton, the Lansdowne. I was going to, independent movie cinemas like the Mandolin. So I was hanging out in that pocket of Sydney, which at that time it was striking. It was an amazing time. And for me, spending more time in the city at that time, I had to eat. And you need
Where
to
did you
remember.
grow up?
Yeah, so Carlingford Beecroft was my earlier childhood, and then I was born in Auburn Hospital, of all places. Then we moved to Carlingford Beecroft area, and then during
So we're talking heartland,
yeah,
urban Aussie.
I think so. Yeah, you'd call it
upbringing.
that. You'd
Yeah.
call it that. And then we moved to Glenhaven, which is sort of out between Castle Hill and Dural in 1986, 87, I think.
Was that a Bible Belt? Am I
The Hills
getting?
District,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So think of it this way. It was a hard graft to get into town because there was only a bus service that would take me to Penny Hills train station, then to catch a train from Penny Hills to Central. It was hard graft. So it was a plan to get
That
there.
feeling of getting on the bus
Yeah,
and then getting
yeah,
on the
yeah.
train
It
and
was
then
an escape. It was an escape. It was an escape to somewhere I wanted to be, and I lived so far away from. So anyway, I'd go to these bands, and sometimes I would sleep. I would sleep in a train station because I'd missed the night rider or whatever. This is sort of night rider time. They'd only just started the night rider buses.
do you know
I'd
I
miss
used
the
to
train.
sneak onto the night ride when I was at boarding school up
Love
Parramatta
it.
Road.
I love it. I love
We
it.
used to get off just at the bottom there of Whitlam Square and run up and go to the gay dance clubs
Oh, fantastic.
and then get back on the night
The
ride up
exchange. The exchange. You
and
do.
then sneak up
Know
the
all
drain
about
pipe in
this?
the window.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was spending a lot of time and I had to start eating, and so I started finding these places, and a memorable place was obviously Barbecue King. Like, far out. Barbecue King, it was a bowl of soup was my favorite thing there. I couldn't afford the duck, but I'd have a bowl of noodle soup. Had some duck in it.
How did you come across Barbecue King?
Do you know what? I was tipped off. Go into Chinatown. There's a place called Barbecue King because I was early for a gig and I was hungry, and I was talking to one of the roadies there. He said, "Barbecue King, go and check it out." And on that time, I just I thought, wow, this is the place. So I started spending a lot of time there at Barbecue King, always having the bowl of soup. Then they started giving me the staff soup. The staff soup was kind of the soup that you had to be in the know to have. So there was that. And then another really interesting food memory for me at that time was because I was allured to the city. It was a place where I'd probably meet people. And I got a phone call, and this is before mobile phones. This is before internet. I had a phone call from a girl on the family line. Now, do you remember what it was like calling
dial.
people? The dial. But it was like, am I going to call this girl, and will her dad answer the phone? So anyway, luckily I answered the phone, and it was the girl, and she wasn't going to get harangued by my mother or my father. And she said, "What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Oh, not a great deal." I said, "Look, why don't we meet early evening? I've got to be out, but let's meet early evening." And I said, "Okay, great, let's do that. I'll meet you at Central." Anyway, so on my way in, I got out at Town Hall and thought I walked down. I'm early, and I came across this amazing deli, which will always be my sort of deli. It's not there anymore. It's called Cyril's. It's in Haymarket. And I thought, this is amazing. This is food that I've never sort of eaten before.
Did you stumble across it?
Yeah.
Do you think it was a bit magnetic? Because Cyril's was
The weirdest address.
yeah, it's
It
right.
was on a Hay Street, I think.
It's on Hay Street, and it's actually sits now on the light rail line opposite the Capitol Theatre.
Yeah.
But back then you could pull up.
Yeah.
And it was about a good 100, 200 yards from Paddy's Market.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of on the cusp of Chinatown. Like, what's a European deli?
He was
here?
Polish, I believe, Jewish Pole.
Pole or Czechoslovakian or something, Eastern European.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cyril. Anyway, so I found this place. I thought, well, it's a beautiful day. I'm going to get some of this stuff, and I hadn't tried some of these olives before. I certainly had a lot of the sliced meats and things like that. I'd never had pate before. So I got some pate. I bought some bread from him, and I got this.
Did you have a sense of what to get? Did the food just
I
come
asked
to you?
him.
Right.
I asked him.
What did you ask him?
I said, "Look, I want to have a picnic. What should I get?" Well,
What did you look like?
what do I look like? Okay, so at this time, I had sort of long, straggly blonde hair. I was in a sort of a wild sort of collared shirt with some torn jeans and a pair of trainers. Like yeah, a normal 16, 17-year-old kid.
So this is an
who
odd
wasn't,
place.
Yeah, he's probably not used to a customer like me coming into his shop. So it was this almost like a father-son connection. He was an older guy looking after a young guy, almost on his first date. I'm trusting you. What should I get for my picnic? So he got some olives, gave me a little bit of pate, he gave me a baguette, we got some sliced meats, and we got some cheese. And he said, I like blue cheese, but most people don't like blue cheese. And I said, well, I've never had blue cheese, but I've had that. Can we have that? So he gave me some brie. And that was it. And I took it. And I met this girl at Central Station, and we went and sat in the park opposite, and we had this incredible picnic. Um, and I ate food that I'd never eaten before, and I trusted his judgment, and I judged my excitement and my curiosity of, well, this is food that I've never tried before. I'm interested in this, and I'm going to take someone else on a journey with me. Let's do this. So it was like it was a really amazing picnic.
So as the years progressed, you went back to Cyril's.
Yes,
What were some of the conversations you would have with him?
I didn't see Cyril a great deal
His
after
son
that.
worked there, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I never struck up this kind of trust relationship. It was more a transactional thing. But when I went there, I knew what I was getting. It was authentic. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it wasn't the most amazing, but it was authentic. And I love the authenticity. That to me is an important part of any story. It's how authentic is it? Is it all for show? Is it all the gear and no idea? Or is it real? And that entire shop was real. It was this guy called Cyril's life. And he was passing it on to the next generation. And I loved that. That was a real attraction to me.
The independent bands, independent food places like Barbecue King
Yeah,
and Cyril's drew you to the city.
yeah,
I want to draw a connection between these independent businesses
yeah,
and bands
yeah.
to independent farming.
Do you know, again, it's that authenticity. It's the integrity behind it. These independent farms, they're, if you really think about what they're doing, is they're growing something. It's their livelihood. It's what they do, and what they can do. It's their lifeline. And a lot of the time, they give it their absolute best. But sometimes it gets taken by a huge supermarket, and they're getting nothing for it. They get paid very little for it.
Why do farmers choose to give in to these?
Sometimes they don't have another they don't have another route to market. That's how they're used to selling their product. They don't know the way to get into a farmer's market, or they don't know how to set up an online store, or they don't know how to set up delivery, so that they're relying on these big markets to sell their stuff to other people. They need a middleman to move it. And the minute somebody needs a middleman to move their product, they're losing a lot of their profit.
Does
So
the product change, the production of it?
I think it does. I think it does, because what they end up doing is they end up growing something to suit the middle market rather than growing something to speak for that product. A carrot is an amazing vegetable, but if you grow it to meet a particular spec, sometimes you're pumping it with too much water because you need it to be a particular size. You're picking it at a certain time when it might not be ready because it needs to meet a particular size. So you're not eating that carrot at its best. You're eating that carrot so the farmer can sell it. Whereas if there's no middleman and they're not relying on this huge conglomerate behind that, they can go to a farmer's market, they can sell the carrot how they want to sell the carrot for the price that it costs them to make it, to grow it. You're eating a great carrot. So I think independence in anything you do in life, that's a huge strength. That is a way forward in life. Don't rely too much on the middleman or someone else to make it work for you. You have to make it work for yourself.
When you meet with the farmers and you're having a conversation with them, do they see that you see them and you understand that they've gone through 4 seasons in maybe a day?
I think they do, but I make it very clear that I see them, because for me, it's an honor to have them at the farmers market every Saturday. It's an honor. And even if they're not, even if they're a new producer that I'm using it from here by Mike, or someone that I'm using here at Kitchen by Mike, it's an honor. These people, it's their life. So that's in itself. I'm having something that they're producing. It's who they are. I'm eating that person. I'm tasting that person's product every day.
The pendulum, we've said before, is swinging away, has swung away from, boutique farming. We're losing a whole generation.
Yeah.
Slowly, however, we are seeing a comeback.
I hope so. But what I see, particularly with the farmers market landscape, is you you have a collection of farmers right now, and there may be a particular radius around the farmers market. But as time moves on, real estate prices increase, they become more favorable, and they think, you know what? Gosh, I work hard to grow those carrots. I could actually sell my farm, subdivide it, and make a fortune. I'll never have to work again. I'll have some money to pass down to my children. I'm going to do that. So that's what's happening. The city is expanding. You're getting this urban sprawl and you're losing farms. So the farms are becoming farther and farther away. And then after that, you're finding the farms are having to drive so far to market. At Carriage Works, some of our farmers drive 5 hours each way to get to market because they believe in what they do. They want to sell their product in what they believe in. They also want the right price, and they enjoy touching people. The people that go to a farmer's market care about what they eat. They want to have that connection with the farmer. So independence is a massive thing, and I hope that it's a forever growing part of the market. I hope that it doesn't stop, and I hope that convenience doesn't kill it.
Are you aware of that? I don't know, we'll use this in the record, but are you aware of that little Asian farmer? It's actually a big farming space on West Botany Street in Rockdale that you drive. Are you aware they grow Asian vegetables? So as
Yes.
you're driving,
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Yeah,
he's been there for decades.
yeah. It's near Illingdon Field. It's near,
Correct,
yeah.
correct, yeah.
So my boys played soccer for Rockdale, and well, one of my boys plays soccer for Rockdale. It was a good team, NPL1 squad, and I used to pass that farm, yeah, every week on the way to training. Yeah, yeah,
And there they are in the traditional
yeah,
hats,
yeah. I love it.
the Chinese farming hats
I
just
love
there.
it.
I just was thinking about it now, is thinking what's close to home, and it's that little
Yeah,
pocket.
yeah.
But let's travel back to your early cooking journey.
Oh,
Where did you start to cook?
good question.
Good answer. It would be nice.
Well, I like most Aussie kids back in the 70s and 80s. You you know, I'm from an Aussie battler family. Both my parents worked, and they worked really hard to bring me and my sisters up. And for us,
What number in the family were you?
I'm number two,
Of
three. Well, number two of a stepsister who is 2 months older than me, and a half sister who's younger than me. So my stepfather and my mum worked exceptionally hard to give us the best life they could possibly give us. So quite often we were eating a little bit late, 8:30, because they were home from work late, and we'd eat, the same stuff all the time. You know, burnt lamb chops and lumpy mash and peas, or we might have, sausages and mash, or we might have, minced meat and things. It's really simple oxtail soup. Don't get me wrong, I love all of that stuff, but that's all we were eating. And I started to become curious about, well, I see all these kids' lunch boxes at school. What's that? What's this? So I cooked, not very often, maybe once a couple of weeks, I'd cook dinner. And my mum was pretty cluey. She started buying cookbooks and started showing me cookbooks and magazines that she had. And I started saying, look, I want to cook this. So on a Thursday night, late night shopping, they'd get the stuff and I would cook. So I started to cook a little bit more at home, but I never once thought I was going to be a chef.
what were you discovering when you were reading?
I was discovering that there was a journey behind food. Food wasn't just a commodity. Food was an experience. Food was a story, and I like stories. I, I don't. It's been a long time like this, but I don't read cookbooks anymore for the recipe. I read cookbooks for the story. I'm interested in the introduction. I'm interested in the story behind each dish. I'm not really interested in the grams and the mils, if you know what I mean. I'm interested in really what's going uh, on that page. So for me, it was the story. It was this connection that this cookbook writer, Margaret Fulton, for instance, we had the big, thick Margaret Fulton cookbook. I used it a lot, and there was a connection with that. I loved it. So yeah, that was what I found at that time. It was a real connection for me, and understanding that food is not just about fuel. It's not about it's time to eat because it's dinner time. It's about trying to have some sort of connection with what you eat.
And how did the family connect to that?
Oh man, don't get me wrong. I cook some shocking meals. My first attempt at cooking bread was a brick. Like it was so heavy, it was ridiculous. But I was trying things. I was interested. I was curious. I wanted to understand, well, how is that bread so light, and why is mine a brick? Let's try again. Or why is my breast perfect and my thighs are pink and undercooked? What am I doing wrong? I'm following the recipe. I was interested in what was behind it. I like the science. I enjoy science. I love the science behind
You know, I
cooking.
was just about to ask you that very
Yeah,
question.
I love the science
Yeah.
because there is science in cooking, which I really enjoy. But I think what happens later is once you understand the basics of science, then it becomes more intuition.
So when you connect the science with the feeling,
Yeah, it's you don't make many mistakes after that. It's yeah.
takes you to your first job.
All right, so I'm going to tell you about my first job while I was at school, and then my first job when I
Out
left
of
school.
school.
My first job while I was at school was being a kitchen hand at the Black Stump in Pennant Hills.
Woo!
Yep. So that was my grounding in a kitchen.
On the Pacific Highway there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
Black Stump, we're famous for our steaks.
Yeah, that's it. You got it. So that was my job. And then bumming around after doing the HSC, not knowing really what I wanted to do. I saw on the front page of the Herald, the Sydney Morning Herald employment section, I saw this picture of a chef with a torque on, one of those big white hats. I thought, I like your hat. I can cook. I'm going to try. So I looked through the newspaper and I found a few jobs and I applied. And one of them was for Chez Oz. Now, Chez Oz, at that time, quite a famous restaurant in Sydney. John Laws used to eat there a number of times during the week. It was on Craig End Street in Darlinghurst. 17 out of 20. So it was this is pre-hats, this was scores, but 17 out of 20 was one of the top restaurants in Sydney. And it was owned by a very famous Melbourne restaurant family called the Staleys. And they own Fanny's and Glow Glows in Melbourne, really famous restaurants. Anyway, Helen had one in Sydney called Chez Oz. What a name, huh? Chez Oz. So 1980s. I love the name. Anyway, I knocked on the door and I met the chef. His name is Peter. And I said, Peter, I'm looking for work. Anyway, we had a great conversation. She said, you can start next week. So I came on the first day. Now, remember this. This was 1990, 89, 90. It was 1990. This was pre-Harbour Tunnel. This is Mike driving from Glenhaven to Darlinghurst. This is Mike leaving home at 6 o'clock in the morning in order to get to Darlinghurst by 8 because the entirety of the North Shore was being funneled over the Harbour Bridge. So it took me 2 hours minimum to get to Darlinghurst every day. So I got there at 10 minutes to 8. I was stressed that I was late. I got there and he said, Mike, welcome. Here's your recipe book. Here's the menu. Have it ready for lunch. Great, thanks. Who am I doing? You're by yourself. You're on cold larder and pastry by yourself. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? I've never
Why didn't you turn around and
I've
walk
never
out?
made a souffle before. What's creme patissiere? How do you make a vinaigrette? What is this? Anyway, I made lots of mistakes. And every night after work at midnight, of course it wasn't a 2-hour drive home, it was an hour drive home because there was no traffic, but I cried literally every night on the way home because I made so many mistakes and I was thinking, what the fuck are you doing? Do you really want to be a chef? I did it every night for 2 weeks. And those shifts that I was doing at Chez Oz, it was Monday to Saturday. It was doubles Monday to Friday and a Saturday dinner. So that's 5 doubles and a single. That's a 100-hour week.
How many covers? How many people were sitting in?
60 covers. Small restaurant, but it was quite fine dining. It was a tight kitchen. There was only 3 of us in the kitchen with a kitchen hand. So, but after 2 weeks, I nailed it. I didn't make any more mistakes because I'd made them all. And I started to enjoy it. And I started to change sections and I started to have a relationship with food. But at that same time, I didn't have a girlfriend anymore. I wasn't seeing my friends. I wasn't seeing the bands in the city that I used to love to do. I was exhausted. I was driving so far and I was working 100-hour weeks. I knew something had to change. I started forming this relationship with food now. I loved what I was doing, but something had to give. So I thought, right, I'm going to work really, really, really hard this morning, get all my prep done for tonight as well, and I'm going to go and walk from Darlinghurst to the Rocks, to the rock pool. And I'm going to ask Neil if he's got any work, because at that time I was at Ride TAFE with a guy called Angel, and Angel was working at Rock. And he said, you know what, come look, I think we need a chef on Larder with me. Why don't you come and see? So I knocked on the door and Neil answered the door. And I'd read a few things about him. Rockpool was kind of the place to be at that time. It was the shizzle at that time. It had just opened. It had been open for 6 months, and it was everywhere. Neil answered the door. He said, "Come in. Where are you working?" I said, "I'm at Chez Oz." And he goes, "Wow, that's a great restaurant. Why do you want to leave there?" I said, "Oh, I'm just looking for something different." He said, "Well, okay. How many shifts a week do you do?" And I said, I do 5 doubles and a Saturday night." He goes, "Great. When can you start?" So I handed in my notice and started there in 2 weeks. And from that moment onwards, started the real journey. That was an amazing time. Neil was the most incredible mentor for a young chef entering the game. He was the guy.
Talk about Neil for a little bit, because
Okay.
he has produced some extraordinary alumni.
Yeah, there's a
Hasn't
lot
he?
of us out there.
If we think
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
there is Mark Best,
yeah,
there's Lorraine,
yeah,
there's Peter Gilmore, David Thompson. I mean, he himself and all
yeah,
the contemporaries that he's created.
yeah. Look, he's a force. He's a force, but he's a very generous man with his time. And I think he, like most of us that have spent a lot of time with him, we all feel the same. We are passionate about food and what we do, and we love the produce, and we honor the produce, and it's that real connection. And you know what? If I really undo Neil, he's about hospitality as well. He loves looking after people. He's very generous, and he's a great cook. And you know, he was amazing. I can't fault him. I loved working with him. He was a great mentor. He was a great person to start your career with.
What does it feel like when you bump into Neil at a function or event, or even in the street, or when he comes in
Oh, it's
here?
always a hug.
Yeah.
Always a father stroke great mate relationship. We got on very, very well. We've known each other for a long time.
He's created a brotherhood, I would say, of all his.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Everyone, I don't know anyone that's worked with him that doesn't respect him. Yeah. He's great.
Your second food memory, I'm going to have a swig of
Can we
this.
do this? Yeah, let's have a
Yeah,
drink.
I need a big one. How you going? Are you going well here?
I think so. I think
A
so.
smiling eater is, so you must be doing well.
He's a smiley guy. I can't help it. You look at the wrinkles. They give it away.
Your second food memory,
Okay.
it's a little later in the 90s. We're in the UK. Go.
Bugger. Okay. So I'd worked for Neil now for 5 years. And I'd worked all my way up to sous chef at Rockpool. And we were at the top of our game at that time. We were 18 out of 20 material. We were best restaurant in Sydney. We'd just been given Gourmet Traveller best restaurant. And
what was it that just kept you all together? I mean, you're an army of sorts, aren't you? You're a.
we all believed in the same thing. There was no charlatans there. You went in there for war. For Rockpool, you went in there because you believed in what we were cooking. You loved what you were cooking. You believed in it, and you loved to eat it. Like, we all ate the food. We all ate well. We all had great staff dinner, and it was this real camaraderie there. And we just loved the way that the restaurant was moving. And everyone loves doing something great. We knew we were doing something great, so I guess that's why we all stuck together. And it was a tight team. We were all there for a long time. So then he'd opened the Star Grill. Star Grill was at IMAX in Darling Harbour when that first opened. And he said, "Mike, will you be executive chef for that?" And I'm thinking, 25. Of course, I'd love to give that a go, but I knew in my heart I needed to learn more. I'm cooking with, I'll be running the kitchen. I'll have chefs that have been cooking for far longer than me under me. I'll be coming across many different things that I don't know, but I'm going to give it a go. And I did, and I loved it. I loved it, but it was that gnawing thing that I knew that I had so much more to learn. So at this time anyway, I knew in my heart I wanted to travel. So my girlfriend at the time and I were saving quite a bit of money to do that. So we left. I left after close to a year there, and I traveled for a whole year through Europe. I'd saved a lot of money. I had a backpack. I had a suit.
What was the suit for?
Well, that was the thing. So, and I had a tent. So we camped
Oh,
everywhere.
suits and tents go hand in hand.
They do, don't they? What? Because I didn't want to spend money on accommodation. I wanted to spend money on food. So I ate at Michelin restaurants left, right, and center. And people would clock me
The
getting out of a
suit was-
tent in a suit. What? This guy's mad. But that's what it was.
This is by Mike madness.
Yeah, this is madness. But there was a method to my madness, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to learn. I wanted to see. And at that time, Michelin was mythical in Australia because it was way before internet. It was the only thing you would hear about Michelin was Marco Pierre White's White Heat Cookbook, which we all had as soon as it came out. We all got it. And it was this myth of Joel Robuchon and all these other places. And the myth actually, when I was at Rockpool, sorry to digress, but in my third year at Rockpool, I went to meet a friend of mine in Spain to say hi, and just on a holiday. And Neil said, "Why don't you go and do a stage at a restaurant?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that."
Explain a stage because this doesn't happen a lot these days.
It doesn't, right?
Yeah.
A stage is where you make an introduction to yourself and you go and work in someone's kitchen for free. You want to learn. So I wrote a letter to Annie Fiol from Enoteca Pinchiori in Florence, Michelin 3-star, amazing. Got a letter back. Neil gave me the contact, which was, God bless him. Went and worked there on my way home. Had the most incredible time. Came back and like I was a second stroke third year apprentice at this time. Like I had so much inspiration that I put food on the menu for Neil with Neil. And one of them is still on his menu today. It's the ghost cheese tortellini.
That's you.
That was a dish that I did. The tortellini was something that I brought back and developed at Rockpool for Neil.
Up there with the date tart.
There it is. So that was an incredible time. So for me, I wanted to travel. I wanted to eat at these restaurants. I wanted to see what these restaurants were about. And I wanted to also see different culture. You know, I'd started to see different culture when I was younger at school by going to Cyril's, by going to Barbecue King. Here I was in this white Bible Belt of Sydney, the Hills District. Now I'm coming out. This is the late 80s, early. Now I'm coming out and I want to see culture.
Diana Ross in the background.
I want to see it all. I was hungry to learn and to see things. So that was what my year was. It was traveling through countries, hiring cars to drive to hard to get to places. I even used to get the Michelin Green Guides because I was interested. I love the architecture. I used to read a green guide and go into churches and look at the different marbles and the different frescoes, and I found it really fascinating because it was so far from what I'd been brought up to do. This is like exciting. I started to read classic books, you know, Somerset Maugham and Dickens and all of these incredible books that I'd never really read when I was at school. I started to read these incredible classics and started to fall in love with literature and things like that. It was almost like a renaissance, man. It was like, wow, this is an amazing learning time for me. So anyway, after traveling for a whole year, I ran out of money and I had an ancestry visa. So I could land in London and I could work there for 4 years. That was the visa. So I landed and thought, well, where do I want to work? I want to see what it's like to work in a Michelin restaurant. I've done stages in Michelin restaurants. Let's go and work in them. So I worked at Aubergine with Gordon Ramsay for a little bit. I worked at Pied à Terre with Tom Aiken for a little bit.
What was it like working with Gordon?
Do you know what? He's an amazing chef. He really drives a team, and the team he had back then were, man, they were mercenaries. These guys were, wow, they were a team. They were really tight, and of course there were younger kids in there that were new and didn't understand what it was like, and they got smashed. They got absolutely smashed. But there was a top crew in there that had Gordon's back and would never let anything go wrong, and it was an amazing team. It was an amazing part of food history, and I was happy to play a very, very small part in it. Like, I didn't work there for long, um, mainly because I didn't understand why we had to run a kitchen in such a way like that. I didn't understand why there had to be such disciplines in play, and it was the same in a lot of those restaurants. So then I went and worked for Terence Conran at Mezzo, and I loved that because we were doing massive numbers. We're doing 1,000 people downstairs and another 1,000 people upstairs at lunch alone. Then we do it again for dinner. So we're doing massive numbers, and I really started to enjoy looking at numbers in I guess, a P&L way. I loved understanding, well, actually, if you lose money in a restaurant this scale, you're losing masses of money. And I really enjoyed looking at that. But what started to happen was I started to understand that you're not cooking food because you're cooking what you think you want to cook. You're cooking with the produce that's available. I started to understand at that moment in time that there were seasons, that I couldn't get a mango when I wanted a mango.
Which is what you had access to back home.
I could get a mango pretty much any time I wanted.
What happens to cooking when you start taking direction from Mother Nature, from the seasons?
That's when it becomes authentic. That's when it tastes better. And that's when you take a less is more approach. So from Mezzo, I went to Bluebird, and I started to look at their, I guess, their food store. I was their creative director. That's what I'd been brought in to do. I was a culinary director of food to help John Turode do what he was doing there. And I started to understand, well, hang on a sec. I'm seeing all of these beautiful vegetables in the food store there. Now I need to cook with those vegetables. And it was that discipline that really started to make me understand that, well, you never use an asparagus after Midsummer's Day because you stop farming then. And Mirabelles, well, they're 2 weeks of the year. You wait, and the glorious 12th, well, that's the game season. That's when it starts, and you only use game after that date. So it's these little birthday periods where you focus on that ingredient. Then I got a tap on the shoulder, and I got asked to do Damien Hirst's restaurant, the pharmacy.
Yeah.
And of course, I questioned at the time, this is an art installation. Do I need to do artistic food which is turned inside out and unrecognizable? Do I need to grab a carrot? Do I need to boil it, freeze it, puree it, deep fry it, dehydrate it, and serve it in a soup to make you feel as though you're eating a carrot? Or can I just embrace really beautiful carrots and make a really beautiful carrot salad? How do I approach this? And that's where I went. And it was at that time where I just started to realize, well, that's how I like to cook. I actually like to embrace ingredient. I started to think back of, well, Michelin is one thing, and Michelin has changed a lot these days. A lot of Michelin restaurants are for the better, and they're all cooking with nature and respect and are sustainable. But back then, to put a potato on a plate, it was peeled within an inch of its life to make a perfect round square.
What were we
Yeah, it turned. And the rest of it was put in a bin. And I never understood that. I never understood the waste. So that was something that turned me against that type of fine dining. So the type of food that I was drawn to was rustic and focusing on the season. And that's what I started cooking at the pharmacy and did very well with it. So at that time, my food memory is definitely the seasons. It was a wake-up call. It was a discipline that I've never let go of. It was a discipline that really drives the way that I cook. It informs me of what I should be doing.
So you came to this new discipline with the training, with the technology, with the technique,
Yeah.
and the understanding of what can be done with food.
Yeah.
Now that we're listening to Mother Nature now.
Mother Nature is more powerful than turning your potato. because I don't want to turn a potato if the potatoes aren't in season, if they're not perfect, because they don't taste right. You're only getting half of the potato. And you turning the potato, it might look incredible. You've turned this perfect cocotte of potato, this perfect sphere of potato. Wow, it looks amazing, but it tastes like shit. I would rather have a potato that tastes amazing, and you can make it look great, but it tastes amazing.
Do you have conversations with the good lady up there sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
What do you say to her?
Keep bringing the
Okay.
food. Keep bringing the
Keep
food.
sending.
Keep sending.
I had your grandmother's rice pudding when I
Oh
was
yeah.
at Here by Mike,
Oh yeah.
from
Okay.
Here by Mike last week. Now,
Do you know we ignored those other food memories. We've all got millions of food memories. My first food memory was actually sitting in my grandmother's strawberry patch as a probably 2 or 3 years old, naked, eating strawberries. That's my first food memory, if I'm really honest with you. And that rice pudding was something. She wasn't a great cook, and she was very frugal. That rice pudding was something we had most Sundays. That was our Sunday treat, the rice pudding.
but you've done something very beautiful to it. You've added layers to it. You've added story to it, and it's a homage to your grandmother. I really need to tell you to tell me what you've done to that rice pudding.
Well, we used to have the rice pudding with a spoonful of jam. And I love that. I love rice pudding and jam because you just choose the jam on the shelf, which you've made the season before or the year before, whichever you've got. And it just gave the rice pudding a spin. And the rice pudding is always made with, condensed milk, vanilla, really short grain rice, hard to find pudding rice these days, and cream. It's a really simple recipe, but it tastes the same, and I love the texture. But what I realize is that most people don't understand that. They don't understand a bowl of rice pudding with a spoonful of jam. So in order to serve something like that in a restaurant, in order to connect somebody with that feeling, you need to maybe heighten it a little bit, give it a little bit more sort of level. So what I do now is I poach fruit. I put it on the bottom, and I think you had it with quince when you came.
Yeah.
Quince is my favorite fruit of all time, but you can use poached pear or tamarillos or plums. It's beautiful with plums. So poached fruit on the bottom, and then I cover it with the rice cream. And the rice cream is not baked rice custard. It's cold rice cream. It's vanilla rice cream, like the stuff you get in a can, but it's the real deal. We make it. And then on top, I do a brulee top to give it a nice crunch. So you have I guess a different experience. You have this texture, you have this seasonality of the fruit, but you also have this connection with my grandmother, with her recipe in the middle. So we've sandwiched her, with technique, season, and Nana's in the middle.
Yum. Now, your third food memory, I really love this memory. This is a pivot on a dime of a memory. This is the sabbatical you took in 2009. Mike, I don't think I will ever have the opportunity to take a sabbatical. I say that now, and I think many people, it's a luxury to think to be able to literally take time out of your life. I mean, a sabbatical is, I'm stopping. You're giving yourself that chance to just stop life for a second and step out of what you've been doing.
Yeah.
What got you to taking the sabbatical?
Yeah, it was a number of things. It was knowing in my heart that I had to start thinking about what I wanted to do and not cook for the man anymore, to cook for me and believe in what I do. I hadn't really discovered what I do yet. I hadn't discovered the by Mike kind of thing yet. I knew what I liked to cook, but it wasn't complete. There was also the massive, I guess, thought that I love the UK. I love Europe. I miss the seasons. So that was another part that I missed. I missed the travel. I missed the connection. I missed the population.
Just for a second, describe the difference in seasons between the Southern Hemisphere and the Northern Hemisphere.
We're lucky to have 2 seasons here. Really, to be honest with you, we're lucky to have 2 seasons, whereas there you got 4. And they're European seasons. Don't get me wrong, they're not indigenous seasons. They have 6 seasons. So if we were following a native food calendar, it's very different. But I wasn't following a native food calendar because back in in the early 2000s, this was something that I'm really interested in now, but I didn't know anything about it back then because it wasn't exposed. So I was using a European food calendar or a seasonal guide, and at that time, I missed the four seasons. I missed the discipline. I missed knowing that I can't get that. It forced me to make a direct change in what I was doing and try something new. I loved that. So there was that. And then there was also the massive thing that my wife is English. Two of my boys were born in the UK. We weren't sure. Well, Joss was pretty sure, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to spend the next chapter of my life in the UK or whether we wanted to stay in Australia. The kids were at buckets and spades years. They're 3 and 4 and a baby. Literally, we made this decision when William was born in 2009, and it was the decision that we looked at each other and we knew it was the right decision. We had to make a change. So I gave in my job at Rockpool the day William was born. We packed up our house in a shipping container, ready to press the green button, go, to send it to wherever we find. And we left, and we pitched ourselves on Joss's mum's farm in Wales, this beautiful, big organic farm in Wales, totally self-sufficient, amazing. I look at it and I think, wow, they grow all their own livestock. They've got one of the oldest apple orchards in the UK. They've got a beautiful natural stream that all their water is from. They make all their own, they even make their own soap. Like, they're incredible. What an idle place to live. So we pitched ourselves there and we loved it. And we sent our kids to the local village school of learning Welsh of all languages. Can you believe that? There were 30 kids in this village school. And yeah, learning Welsh. And that was a great experience. And we would send them to the school, and Joss and I would drive through the British countryside trying to find utopia, trying to find the next place where we wanted to spend the next chapter. And in this time, living on the farm, I knew that I loved baking bread because on Saturdays when I was living in Sydney, I lived a few doors down from Iggy's Bakery, not on McPherson Street, but in the first one on Belgrave Street. And we used to use his bread at Rockpool, and I used to go and bake there over Saturday before I'd do my shift on a Saturday night. So I love baking. I love my connection with Igor and Ludmilla. And I knew I wanted to bake bread. So I thought, well, I'm going to build a brick oven. So I built this brick oven from scratch. Never built before. I had these beautiful Alan Scott plans, and I built this brick oven. It took me 3 months to make, and you've got to imagine this is Wales, where it rains all the time. It took a long time to build, but I built this brick oven. Then I would fire it up at 2 o'clock in the morning twice a week. I'd hand knead 30 kilos of sourdough, hand shape it, bake it at 6 o'clock, do 3 runs in the oven, and then put it in the back of the car and sell it at school drop-off at the village school. That's kind of was my connection with making bread for the first time independently, like wood-fired, no technology,
It's kind of
all
putting
handmade.
putting your arm into the
Totally.
ashes to say, okay, that's 180.
Yeah, it was. There were so many moving parts. And the first time I got people to try my bread, they didn't know what it was because it wasn't sliced and it wasn't white and it wasn't in a plastic bag. That's not bread. And I said, yeah, you try it. Well, it's nice, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it took me a while, but after a few weeks, I didn't have to do the school drop-off anymore. They'd come to the farm and buy it. So that was a really great connection that I had by making bread in Wales. But
You're
then
creating a following.
creative fun, but also starting to be connected with something that I wanted to do, that I loved, and that was baking. So I knew from then that whatever my next chapter would be, whatever I did, had to incorporate baking bread. Then we were living off that kitchen garden there. The kitchen garden was enormous and still is enormous to the day. We were living off the kitchen garden. There were these 4 beds at the top of the garden. And I said to Sue one day, I said, Sue, why don't we use those beds? Why are they roped off? I can see coriander and I can see gooseberries and there's oregano there. And she said, well, because I rent it out to the White Witch in the village. She said, yeah, it's a Hippocratic garden. Of course, I know who Hippocrates is. I studied Hippocrates at school very quickly. She said, the person's following the 4 humours of the body is phlegmatic, choleric, sanguine, and melancholic. There's 4 humours of the body. Okay. And then she makes tinctures out of these ingredients for the people in the village. And I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. I'm seeing it as culinary. She's seeing it as medicinal. Hippocrates, food is thy medicine, medicine is thy food. It's the basis. Now it's making sense to me. And it was this connection that I had with this notion that really changed the way that I thought about food from then. So now I had seasons. Now I had this knowledge that food, like I said earlier in the interview, I knew that food wasn't just fuel. I knew that it wasn't just a commodity. I knew there was something more in it. Now I understood. Food gave us essence of life. It gave us health, gave us vitality, gave us enjoyment, gave us something to enjoy around the table as well. And now I had the seasons also. It was like, oh my God, I was mad. I was in love with food. From that second on, it just tipped everything. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we never found utopia. What we realized was that chapter in our lives was about our 3 boys, and where else could you take them to the beach after school? But we lived in Bronte. So we moved back in the end of 2009 to Australia. There you are.
And somehow the family has made their way back, and they're not coming back.
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that journey though, because when we came back, it was that moment of realizing, well, I'm back. What am I going to do now? What do I do with this new learned thing? So I started to cook at Iggy's. I baked at Iggy's because I wanted to increase my knowledge. But I knew that, what am I going to do next? Then we woke up one day and Joss wasn't in bed. She was downstairs making tea. And I got up and said good morning to her, and she said, listen, you've got a wife and 3 boys here. What the fuck are you doing? You're a chef. You're not a baker. You're being paid like an apprentice baker. Get out there and look after us. It's like, wow. It was well said. It was well said. It was like, Mike, get off your dream. Now start putting it in action. So I got on my scooter that afternoon and I drove to my friend's antique warehouse in Surrey Hills. His name's Andrew Forst. He has an antique warehouse called Isiella. I said, Andrew, let's have a dinner party. He said, great. What do you mean? I
Burke
said,
Street. Was it on Burke Street at the time?
Nicholson.
Nicholson.
Yes. Near Burke Street Bakery. That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said, yeah, sure. I said, look, I'm going to hire a 3-ton truck. I'm going to empty out the back of your warehouse. We'll leave the zinc tables and the chairs. I'll bring my grandmother's cutlery. I'll borrow some plates, and I'll do a dinner party for us. You invite 20 friends, and I'll invite 20 friends. I'll provide all the food and the wine. Cool, great. 40 people came in. I hired a turbofan oven from Pages, a little 3-ring burner from Pages, and a plate warmer. That was my equipment. I had a trestle table, and I had a couple of friends to help me do it. I went to the market on the Friday. I bought what was cheap, what was in season, what was tasting great. I didn't have a shopping list. I brought it home and I wrote a menu around it. Got there on the Sunday, emptied out. We set the room. Joss came and wrote on the blackboard what I was cooking. People turned up. We did a 5-course menu with wine to go. And it was fucking amazing. It was the most incredible feeling I had. It was the first kind of touch of what a restaurant would feel like to me. And here I was feeding people I loved. Anyway, at the end of it, I said, Andrew, let's do it again. And he said, yeah, let's do it again. So we did this illegal pop-up every second Sunday for a whole year. And what it was me putting it on Twitter. And this was before Instagram. Putting it on Twitter, and you had to be referred to by me. You had to be a friend of a friend or whatever. and it booked out. It was cash only. It booked out 3-4 months in advance. The roller door would come up. You'd have no idea what you were going to eat. Cash went in the basket, and you saw what you were going to eat when you finally got into the room and saw what it was on the blackboard. And we never repeated anything. The menu was different every week. And then we got exposed. We got an incredible review from Pat Norse for Gourmet Traveller and another great one from Miffy Rigby for Time Out. And all of a sudden, this illegal pop-up was out in the open and people knew about it. So anyway, by that time, we'd found this amazing space in Rosebery, and that it was incredible. It was a huge warehouse. And Rosebery at that time, equidistant between city and airport, it was kind of semi-industrial. A few people lived out the back. There was a resi area, but it was semi-industrial. Our street was Dunning Avenue. Anyway, this space was built for Rosella Canning Factory back in the early 1900s. And my gut feeling was, do you want to do something here, Mike? And it was in partnership with a furniture company. And I said, you know what? I love the bones of this building. Yeah, let's do something. I don't know what I'm going to do, but yeah, let's try and do it. So anyway, they said, you're going to have 800 square meters. We're going to take close to 2,000. No problem at all. 800 square meters is a big freaking restaurant. That's massive. Anyway, I sat on the floor, hadn't been used for 10 years. It had just been finished 10 years before this, being used by Aristocrat, the poker machine company. They were making poker machines there. Anyway, it was full of rubbish and rat poo and everything. But I was sitting on the floor thinking, what the fuck am I going to do with this space? What am I going to do? Most beautiful bones, but I have no idea how I'm going to fill this space. Then it came to me, well, this was a factory. There would have been a canteen in this space where Mildred sat next to Bob and had a fag and had their sandwich and had their lunch. Why don't you build a canteen where people can gather and choose their food and serve them? So that's where Kitchen by Mike, the concept, came up with. We built this canteen, and it was a go-go from day one. And during that time, it was exactly how I did the pop-up. It was, let's go to the market twice a week. Let's fill a van full of fruit and veg, bring it back, and then decide what we're going to cook. It was like my way of the seasons. It was my way of having this discipline where the food that was at its best was telling me what to cook. It wasn't me going to the market with a shopping list. So the menu was changing every day. And yeah, we were lucky. It was busy. It was busy from day one. Rich man stand next to poor man in the queue, and everyone could choose the lamb and the chicken, or it was the same producers that I was using at Rockpool, the same people, the same great people that were using. It was amazing.
It's what we call an egalitarian kitchen.
And an egalitarian kitchen, exactly right.
So you didn't find Utopia. You found the By Mike fame.
I found the By Mike fame. I knew what I wanted to do, but tying it back to this Hippocratic garden was this crazy time. I'll finish this story because this is it. So when we opened Kitchen by Mike, we had 80 square meters of car park, and we wanted to build a green space. We didn't have enough money to build a green space when we opened. We'd used it all. We'd put a kitchen in, furniture in, where we've opened. But we were doing 1,000 people a day. So by the time we got a year in, we had a little bit of money in the bank. We thought, let's build the garden. We weren't allowed to excavate, but we had 80 square meters to use. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to have to grow a lot of carrots to feed 1,000 people a day. What am I going to do? And then, it's our natural filing cabinet, our brain. The brain filing cabinet opened up and said, why don't you build a physic garden? So that's what I did. I built this physic garden. The physic garden focused on 5 parts of the body that I was really interested in. So gastroenterology was bed number 1. I did cardiology. I did ears, nose, and throat. I did dermatology. So we had 5 beds, and all of the plants in those beds were focused on that part of the body. And I numbered all of the plants, and I made plaques for all of the beds. And so it became this maze of walking through this garden amongst the 5 beds and looking at plants. And on the plaque, it gave you, for instance, you walked in, on your left side was a gastroenterology bed number 1. And bed number 1, if you looked at plant number 31, I remember this, it was oregano. Oregano is antiparasitical. So on the plaque, it would have what its Latin name was, what its layman's name was, what it does for your body, antiparasitical, and the part of the plant that you use. So someone can walk in there and realize, well, actually, if that's antiparasitical, I'm going to put more chopped oregano in my spag bowl for my kids if they got worms, or, you know, it was this educational process. And we use a little bit of it in our cooking, but it was more to educate people, to give them an experience that I experienced when I was in Wales. I wanted people to connect with food in a way that they realize that it's not the commodity. It's actually whole food is doing something incredible for you. It could be something really simple. It could be something like chicken pie. If it's good, wholesome chicken pie, well, it's doing great things for your body. So that was what I wanted to sort of do around that garden. And that was the basis to the second cookbook, Real Food by Mike. It was picking out an ingredient from each dish and shining light on that ingredient and what it was actually doing for your body. So there's the tie around. Sorry it took so long to get there. It was a long story, right? Anyway, I'm sorry. I can talk 6 foot under with a mouthful of marbles in case you haven't worked that one out.
I can, and I'm quite very happy to listen. You've chosen two quintessentially Sydney. Like I said, you're so Sydney you could be a swan. You've chosen two social causes, quintessentially Sydney, very important, significant organisations. One of them is Too Good and the other is Oz Harvest.
Yeah.
Let's start with Too Good.
Okay. So the first time I came across Too Good was I got approached by Rob Caslick. He's the guy behind it, and he said, "Look, we're doing we've just started a charity, and it's called Too Good, and it's about us delivering soup to people in need, mainly women, homeless women, who, and what it is people buy us to make them soup, and we provide another soup to the homeless person. So it's an economy of scale. We sell one, we give one away for free." And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Let's learn more about this. And then as things moved on, he was employing these beautiful women and giving them a pathway to discover themselves, to get out of such a wretched stage in their life and empower them into a way out of that. And I really loved that. I love that not only is he providing food for people, but he's also giving them a pathway. That to me was music. So whenever I can help Rob and Too Good, I'm first in. I love it. I love what they stand for and totally believe in it.
Have you been a featured chef in the calendar?
Yeah, many times.
What have you produced for them?
In their cookbook. So I've done a few recipes for them based around pumpkin. I've been their featured cook in their Darlinghurst cafe.
Yeah.
We did a soup for that one and a toasted sandwich, which was great. I chose vegan for those ones because I just think a lot of people quite often think of vegan food as being bland. So I wanted to sort of shake that one up a little bit. And I've done a lot of events for them as well for their charity. So quite often they will cater for events, or they would do a massive event for different people, and I like to sort of help them wherever I can with that. So yeah, I'm constantly on the radar with Rob, and I run into him a lot because they're based at Carriage Works. So I pass him a lot. We always run into each other, and I'm forever in awe of what he does and what it stands for and what he's doing.
Oz Harvest.
Ronnie Khan was a Bronte person many moons ago. So I used to run. I first met Ronnie when I was baking at Iggy's, and this was early days of Oz Harvest, and I understood what she was doing, and I thought, I like this because I'd gone through this whole period of cooking where waste was massive. I cooked in all these Michelin restaurants, and it was all form, no content. It was all, how can we turn an ingredient inside out and waste so much food just to retain such a small amount? So waste was always a big thing on my mind. So knowing that restaurants or grocery stores or providors had an avenue to repurpose food to people that needed it was a really great, it's a great beacon for me. I loved it. So again, I've known Ronnie for a long time and have been partnering with her for a long time and did so many of those big dinners that they did. So yeah, I love it. I love what they do. I love what they stand for because waste and sustainability is important. We all need to embrace that. We need to understand that food is finite. Why are we wasting it? Let's, if we're going to waste it, let's give it to someone that really needs it.
We have an MFK Fisher serve it forth tradition here at TFM, where our previous guest presents you with a dish. Fermenter Kenji Morimoto serves you kimchi bahas with coriander, miso, and mint chutney. He says it plays on the onion baha, the
Yeah.
little ball. So but he's using very old fermented kimchi instead. How do you feel about these fermented? How are your fermented balls?
Balls. Do you
How do you
know what?
feel about this?
I love fermentation. I believe in fermentation.
Well, you know a lot about it because bread it requires
Yep, that's it.
lots of
That's the
fermentation.
fermentation. And back in the day when we opened Kitchen by Mike in 2012, I built a kombucha wall. So we had at any given time, we had over 80 4-liter Kilner jars full of kombucha moving at any time, full of scobies. So I've embraced the fermentation, and I believe that the gut is your other. It's your other brain. The gut is so important, and you need these probiotics, these fermentations, these healthy bacteria in your life. So I'm not scared by that dish. I want more of the
You want more of
kimchi.
it?
Give me more kimchi.
Kenji was telling me that after Christmas he came across a whole bunch of fruit mince pies
Mm,
and he fermented them
wow,
and turned them into a miso paste. So they are, and he's yet to try them, but his thinking is it'll be very fruit driven.
I love that.
And he's going to send us a sample of it. So I will let you know what happens with that one.
Please do. I've made miso many times out of our leftover sourdough.
Ah, of course.
Works is it's amazing. It is amazing, but it's a real precision thing to do, making ferments. You've got to get it right.
What would you like to serve our next guest?
Do you know what? I'd like to serve my next guest my favorite thing to eat. It's really boring.
What is it?
It's boiled eggs and soldiers,
Oh.
but perfect boiled eggs,
I'd
cooked
like you.
perfectly where they're gooey. And the soldiers can be toast or they can be asparagus or whatever you want to dip in. But that boiled eggs and soldiers is my Sunday night ritual. It is my most favorite meal, and it's something that is yeah, it's classic in my life.
I'm going to invite you to sit down with our guest and share that meal.
Great.
Our next guest is Belgian artist Sophie Muller.
Wow.
So she is extraordinary. I will not tell you much about her, so you listen to the interview.
Wow.
But she would love. She's coming. She's coming in a couple of weeks.
Do you think she'll be bored with my boiled eggs and soldiers?
No, I think the both of you will connect on so many levels.
Brilliant. Okay.
Boiled eggs for Sophie. Now this is your opportunity. I don't know if I feel, I don't know what I'm getting myself into here, but this is your opportunity to ask me a question.
Savas, tell me one of your food memories, because I'd love to know that. You asked me three.
I asked you three, one of my food memories, and I want to give you one that resonates with you that you can connect with. Because you gave me Cyril's and Barbecue King. You know what? I will give you one from Barbecue King. When I had finished high school and I was a baby gay, and my partner and I, my then partner at the time, I'd just come back from living overseas, and we lived in a small bedsit, and I was studying at cooking school. Cooking, what was it then?
TAFE.
TAFE. I was
TAFE.
cooking at TAFE, at the East Sydney College there.
Yep.
And I was working for a catering company called Just New under Norma Willis, who was built like a brickies labourer, but she just had the finesse when it came to food. There was quite no one like her in the catering space. I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and I do remember after she died, she would come to visit me in my kitchen, and her noisy bracelet would drag across the bench when no one was in there, and I was
You knew she was
schwitzing.
coming.
When I was, where's the money going to come from? And there I could hear Norma's bracelet in the background. Anyway, what we used to do, and Neil's rock pool book had just come out, and there were 2 recipes in there that were quite inspiring for me. And I remember cooking cooking one and saving enough money to go to the other. And he wrote a recipe for cooking risotto for 500 people that he'd served on the Harbour Bridge. Do you remember this?
I cooked it.
Yeah.
I was part of the team.
The bridge was shut down, and
it was actually on Anzac Bridge.
Anzac Bridge. Was it the opening of the bridge?
It was the opening of Anzac Bridge, and it was for the people that built it, all the workers
that built the bridge, and the quantities were absurd.
It was absurd.
So it was a story more than it was a recipe. And I remember trying to break it down and cooking it for the two of us, and it was a hot mess because obviously when you extrapolate a dish like that,
very different.
It's very, very different. But the next food memory that came from his book was the white cooked chicken.
Ah, yes, absolutely. Is that the one with the truffles?
No, it wasn't the one with
the white cut chicken.
Yeah, with that. And he discovered it with his father.
Yep. His father was mad about food, particularly Asian food. And because he had close Asian friends.
Yeah. The recipes were complex, but they told a story of a man who had lived food.
Exactly. That was such a beautiful book. And it was a pleasure to be there when he wrote that book. Like, I know all of those recipes intimately. I was part of, I remember Patrina Tinsley shooting it. And I remember sending the food upstairs for the shoot. But do you remember me telling you how I went to Anateka Pinkiori?
Yeah.
So that recipe's in that cookbook. There's a little story about my little trip there, and that cookbook is it's a great book. And you're right, it's about stories.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the real guiding lights for me when I started getting to cookbooks. It was more than the recipe.
I still have that book, and I've got all these notes of things that I was going to cook from it, but I never got to because I guess I didn't feel confident enough or brave enough. This was a biblical piece. This was it was religious. And you still look at it now, and the blue has now got bits of marking and dirt, and it's been ripped all over the place. But that was a pretty significant. And your early memories took me back to that time of. It was great hope. There was.
It was, and it was that real time of. It was before internet, so a cookbook was a reference. It wasn't just a book that was on your shelf. And because you couldn't access a billion recipes on how to make a risotto. It was out of a cookbook that you may have on the shelf or you might find in a magazine. So cookbooks were very much part of the food culture back then, far more back then than what they are now. They're more a marketing piece now.
And I remember back then, at that time, Stefano Manfredi had just opened up on the Rocks.
Yes.
And he was in the papers. There were stories all over the place. His restaurants, his main courses had just gone over the $30 mark, and it was a huge scandal.
Yeah.
And I worked at that little Tony Bambini cafe part-time while I was still at school.
Yeah.
And all the lawyers and the barristers were coming. We went to, can you believe he's charging $31 for XYZ? And it was just, I remember... It was UN conversation stuff.
Look, I remember his restaurant in Ultimo back in the day, and that was a really special place. And when he moved to the Rocks, that was a really grand restaurant. It was massive.
And he had his mother making the pasta.
Yeah.
And she'd hang it over the rails.
Mother and his brother was there. It was a real family affair, and it was an incredible restaurant.
His sister was my mathematics teacher.
Really? Did you count gnocchis? Is that...
Oh my God, she definitely counted me out of the classroom many a time when I wasn't focused. So, one final question.
All right.
At the start of the conversation, I asked you, who is this Mike bloke? And now here we are at the end, and we know he's a man in motion, a St. Elmo's fire.
Oh, I love that.
Do you like that?
Yeah, sure.
Took me a while to get there, but we got it. I found it. So before we say bye for now, Mike, I'm curious. In the silence of your heart, what's the question you never stop asking yourself?
Do I believe in what I'm doing? Do I believe where I am today and where I'm going? And what am I bringing to other people? That's what I ask myself constantly. I assess myself and I assess how I affect other people.
Mike McEnearney. Bye, Mike. Thank you for the chew and chat.
Bye, Mike.
Take me to your leader.
Sava, thank you, mate. What a great chat.
That's it for this episode of 3 Food Memories.